Okay, so now at this point I'm going to say that you should bring in your PDF of the lab report form. So what you would want to have done is, before you started watching my video, you would have wanted to have downloaded the PDF of the lab report form so that you can complete the filling out of your PDF of the lab report form. Okay, so here's your lab report form. So this is the Chemical and Physical Changes Lab. This is part 1, and part 1 is, was it a physical change or a chemical change? And the actual experiment starts on page 31 in your book. Those of you who are in my Monday section, you're not actually going to go to the lab. You're going to watch this video and you're going to fill out the experimental results in your chart here. Alright, so appearance of solid sodium hydrogen carbonate. I'm going to tell you what it should look like. If you went to the lab, you would see that it is a white solid. Okay, so white solid. Appearance of hydrochloric aqueous solution is a clear solution. Alright, addition of hydrochloric acid to the solid is what you do, and then B, did it dissolve? And you get to circle either yes or no, and you would say yes. This is the result that you should get if you're actually doing the experiment. And then the second question is, did it fizz? And the answer is also yes. What does the product look like? And you're going to say clear solution. Then what you're going to do is you're going to evaporate it. So that's the little process that you do, the evaporation. And what did it look like when dry? And this is the solid in sample 1. This should look like a white solid. Now if you actually do the experiment, some of you may not get a white solid if you actually really do the actual experiment, as opposed to doing our little dry lab experiment. If you actually heat it too long, it might not look white. It might actually look kind of a little bit like it might look kind of a little bit dark or caramelly colored, or it might even look black. That's just decomposition. It should look like a white solid at this point if you did it just the right amount and not too much. Okay, so then we're going to do the second part, and what we're going to do in the second part is, and let's go back to our little regular paper. So I'm going to zoom out for a minute. Alright, so what you're going to do is you're going to take sample 1. This is our sample 1, the white solid that you have in your at the end of your reaction. So this is going to be your sample 1, and you're going to compare it against sample 2. Alright, so this is still part 1, but this is the second half of that chart. So what we did is, this part right here is what we did up to that point, and now we're going to do the second part. But when we do the second part, your sample 1 is actually going to be this white solid that you got from above. Your sample 2 is fresh sodium bicarbonate that you get from the side of the lab. Alright, so we're still doing part 1. The second chart. So you're going to have sample 1 and you're going to have sample 2. So sample 1, if all went well and you got what you should have gotten, sample 1 should be solid sodium chloride. Your sample 2 is going to be the sodium bicarbonate. It's going to be that same sodium bicarbonate that you got from the side of the room, the sodium bicarbonate. Solid sodium bicarbonate. What you're going to do is, to both of them, you're going to add hydrochloric acid. What should happen is the hydrochloric acid, when you add to sodium chloride, actually should result in no reaction. So if you add hydrochloric acid to sodium chloride, you should see nothing. So when I say no reaction, you are going to see no bubbling. Now, if you didn't do your first reaction correctly, so if you didn't do that first chart correctly, and you didn't add enough hydrochloric acid to it, you may see bubbling, but that's only because you had incomplete reaction and you still have some of the sodium bicarbonate still left. If your first your first reaction went well, then you would have used up all of your sodium bicarbonate, so by this time you should have nothing but sodium chloride, and you should see no reaction. What you will see is it will dissolve, but it shouldn't bubble. Alright, but your sample 2, the sodium bicarbonate that you get from this side, is going to do the same reaction that your first reaction did. So what you're going to get out is your reaction is going to go forward. You're going to get sodium chloride, solid. It doesn't actually look solid at this point. It would look solid if you evaporated it off, but it would be an aqueous solution. And then your other products are water, liquid, and the carbon dioxide gas. So this should result in bubbling. Okay, so then our sample 2 is doing a reaction. Our sample 1 is doing absolutely nothing. Right, so now we're going to continue with that same chart, but we're going to look at the second half of that chart. So we're going to go ahead and fill out the results on this part. This is what these results are. Sample 1, sample 2. So here's sample 1, here's sample 2. And we're going to go ahead and fill out that chart. So let me just zoom in a little bit so you can actually see the your lab report form. Okay, here's my sample 1, here's my sample 2. Sample 1 is what we had out of chart 1. Sample 2 is the fresh sodium bicarbonate that you got from the side shelf. To the question, did it dissolve? The answer is, and I'm giving you experimental results, so did it dissolve? It should. Sample 2 should also dissolve. Did it fizz? And the answer should be, if all went well on your first reaction, it should be no. Does it fizz? And the answer here should be yes. What did the final product look like? It should look like a clear solution. They should both look like clear solutions. And then you're going to answer, did the two samples behave the same or differently? You're going to say either same or differently. You're going to circle one or the other. Are the solids the same? You're going to say yes or no. You should be able to make a conclusion based on the results that I gave you above. Did the dissolving of the sodium hydrogen carbonate in hydrochloric acid involve a chemical change? And you're going to say yes or no. Now, once again, when you are dissolving sodium bicarbonate in hydrochloric acid, you remember that this is actually when you're dissolving the sodium bicarbonate. Sorry, let me zoom out again. Oops. Zoom out. Okay, so when you're dissolving sodium bicarbonate in hydrochloric acid solution, you are actually doing a chemical reaction. When you dissolve sodium chloride in hydrochloric acid, this is not a chemical reaction. This is a chemical reaction. So does this involve a chemical change? Why, yes. Okay, so then you're going to complete the second part of that chart, and then you're done with that part of the experiment. So that is part 1 in full. So that is the end of part 1. So now we're going to go and work on part 2. So this is these are the experimental results that I'm going to provide for this part 2. Alright, so what we're going to do is I'm going to stop at this point, and then I'll continue in a later